Hi, it's Jenny and friends, and today's real funny friend, Brian Posehn. You probably remember him from The Big Bang Theory, which is one of those shows like I binge watch even though I've seen every episode. And I'm sure people like stop you and they're like, yeah, you like rocks, huh?
Yeah, I hear that. Bird. I get that at the airport a lot.
So he's going to be at Comedy Works in Larimer Square. You had a show last night, and then you'll be there through the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
How did you keep a straight face working with that whole cast? Like, I have no idea how many takes it took to get it.
I'm actually pretty good at that, and when I did Just Shoot Me, Laura San Giacomo would bring up that I was kind of unbreakable. And one time I broke, and that's when she noticed it, and she told the live audience, she goes, "He never does that.
Like, he never breaks." Yeah,
yeah. And I don't break, and I always know my lines because when you're like, I don't even like I'm not a real member of that show. I always felt like I was a guest, especially with Big Bang. Later on, I felt more of the family, but at first I was like, man, I can't screw this up.
Yeah, I want to be coming back on this. Yeah,
it's more like I want to be invited back, and I got to be the pro than anything else. And I kind of got it from just my friends, like being on a show with Sarah Silverman before that, or being on a show with Bob Odenkirk. I'd already been tested. Like, if those guys can't break me, no one can.
Yeah.
Like, Odenkirk, it would be really hard because, like, he is so silly and, like, one of my comedic heroes. So, the guy from Better Call Saul, but we did a show together, and his stuff, it was hard, but I do it. You just zone out and you just worry about your lines. And,
you're like, I'm just going to pay attention to what my character would do. And your character, like, you are definitely like walking in, even like you're talking, and I'm like, oh my goodness, like that's the character, like right there. I love it. But, and my daughters right now are like super into Young Sheldon.
Okay.
So like they're starting the family over again and like all the same ones. So I mean it's really cool to be a part of that legacy. And I mean you have had so many amazing roles and a career so far. What would be for we're brand new year? What would be a resolution for this year? What would you like to be able to try this year?
I hadn't thought of that. Resolutions, I've been losing weight for the last couple of years, so just to stay healthy is the main thing. I just want to be alive. But overall, I still have a couple of things. I'm getting to the point where I talk about retirement, and I want to own a comic book store in like San Luis Obispo and that kind of thing. But before that, I'd love to direct something. I always wanted to. I've directed videos, and I'm a big horror movie guy, and I've written stuff. So I'd love to actually get a horror movie produced.
Nice.
And I feel
Can
like
I be an extra?
Sure.
I love horror movies. Like I had the whole week off and I took vacation and then I got sick. So I sat and I was like watching.
And it's a great time for them right now.
Oh, yeah.
There's so many big, big horror movies and small horror movies, but there's all these production companies that are looking for horror now. So I feel like that is something doable.
Right. Well, and
list.
There's so many different ways that you can take it. And then
horror comedy is not always works, but that is something I feel like
what was the one I watched the other day? It was like Black Friday or whatever, where they're stuck at that one. Was like, I'm a huge like Evil Dead fan, so for me, I was like, I gotta watch this. And,
that was fun.
Yeah, but there's a lot of them, and that's super cool because I guess I would never have seen you as the horror movie guy.
Well, I've gotten to do a couple, but as a kid, I mean, that's still probably my favorite genre, horror and action, and I'm a big movie nerd, always have been.
Me too. Like I said, we'll have a great discussion with my co-host Steve because Steve and I we quote movies all day long, and it's funny because when you meet a friend that doesn't know movies and you're quoting them, they're like, "Man, you're funny." I'm like, "Well, somebody else wrote it," but it's one of those where my mind automatically goes to a scene in a movie.
And yeah, my comedy act has always been like that too. I always reference movies. Like I was trying to think right now in my current act, I reference Die Hard 2, 3, and 4.
Nice.
I reference Gremlins. It's all over the place.
So Christmas movies.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
That's what my daughter's her favorite Christmas movie this year was Die Hard.
Oh, nice.
She's 10 years old and I'm already teaching her
great.
the value of some of these. I'm like, oh, good. But luckily, it was the one that was on like the TV, so it was
Oh,
edited a little bit.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I'm like, I don't want her to go to school and be like, yippee-ki-yay.
Right.
That's a nice little phone call to get.
Yes.
But I feel like when I was growing up too, Gremlins was huge, like all of those horror movies. And that's, I think, right where I was like, I fell in love with it because our parents didn't care. My dad's like, I'm going to watch it. You're going to watch what I want to watch.
Yeah.
Like I'm not watching Paw Patrol and stuff like that like our generation does for our kids. I'm like, no. But so it's really fun to be able to share that with her though. But I love that you have that in your act. So Larimer Square, I kind of want to go now.
Oh, cool.
All right. So I'll heckle you a little bit.
Please
just
don't.
kidding. I'm just kidding. I one time I laughed too loud and I got in trouble. So
we had some chatties. I always call them helpers because if they're not heckling, like if they're not trying to mess you up, they think they're helping.
Yeah.
They're not.
Yeah.
So
Do
then
you have
got to
people
shut
like
them
shout
down.
out stuff from like different
You
roles
do,
and things?
yeah. Or they'll go. Like I was talking about dogs last night, and a lady goes, "What about cats?" And I'm like, "Man, we can't do this. Like, this is not the place for this."
And
you weren't sitting at home when I wrote this material, going, "Hey, what about cats?" So you don't get the right to talk now. Like if you weren't at home when I wrote this bit, you don't get to speak.
So during your comedy, like, do you interface with the audience? Like, do you kind of
a little bit, but I think people know that I'm not that guy.
Yeah, you're like, I don't really like this, so can we just? But you're like so nice about it. You're like, I'm gonna call him a helper. I'm like, this is another reason I don't think I could do like live stand-up comedy.
Right.
I'd be like, really? I'd go all like, Matt. What's his name? Matt Rife on me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, man, he just roasts people. I'm like, I'd rather just hear what you guys have to say because I'd be that person that would get roasted and that would not be good for me for sure. But make sure you check him out. He's going to be at Comedy Works, Larimer Square. And we're going to go on air here in just a second and we'll talk movies with Steve.
Great.
Because we do love it. And horror movies is our genre.
Nice.
Although his wife, who's like way younger than him, you got to give him a hard time about that. She's like 20-something years younger than him. And she loves like Hallmark movies and the rom-coms. So I'm like, all right, so what do? You watch a horror movie and then the sweet one before you go to bed? Like, what do you do? Because in my house, I'm like, it's just me. So I can watch whatever I want. I don't have to fight. Unless it's Sophia the First. And then
you could watch a horror movie with Jennifer Love Hewitt in it and then watch...
Ooh, I like
Hallmark
that.
movie with Jennifer Love Hewitt in it. Doesn't she do a lot of those now?
I think.
Yeah,
she is in a lot of those. Lacey Chabert.
Yeah.
I mean, I like those movies too. Like, there's a time and a place, but if I have my way, it's always a horror movie, and I always have to finish it. If I start a movie, I have to finish it, even if it's terrible.
Wow.
Yeah, there's been a lot of those. Like, ugh, I can't unsee them. Like Human Centipede. I can't unsee that.
I didn't even. Yeah, there's certain horror movies where I just go, that's not for me.
I'm like, I read it, I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. And then you get in, you're like, oh my God, who thought of this? And it's scary. So I'll be an extra, but not one like that.
Right,
okay,
no.
sounds good to me. All right, make sure you check him out, comedyworks.com.